the first part of the state capture report has named some of those responsible for weakening the South African Revenue Service. It lays the blame squarely on then Commissioner Tom Moyane and former President Jacob Zuma. The receiver of revenue lost thousands of skilled managers and investigators during Moyane's tenure. Let's get some reaction to this now from current SARS Commissioner Edward Kieswetter, who joins me now for that conversation. Read and weep, I would say, Commissioner. Was that your sentiment as you read the aspects that had to do with SARS from the Commission report?
Thank you, Thulas. Let me first, before I go into that, take a moment and share with you that the first commissioner since the establishment of SARS, Mr. Trevor van Heerden, had passed on last night. And we would like to pause and remember his contribution and also express our sincerest and warmest condolences to his family.
Absolutely.
Thulas, you would know, as South Africans do, that the Nugent report had set out in detail the actual events at SARS, the failure of governance and integrity, the unnecessary and unhelpful review of the operating model by Bain, the cleansing of the organization of senior executives, the culture of fear and intimidation, as well as the loss of technical skills and other. So the Nugent report sets that out. I think the most sobering message for South Africans is not only was SARS one of the organizations involved in this project of state capture, but it is the centrality of SARS to the entire state capture project. When I read the first, I looked and noticed that SARS appears over 350 times in this first version of the report. I don't know how many times it will appear in subsequent volumes. And so it gives you a sense that SARS was central to the success of state capture. So the benefit that the Zondo Commission report provides us with as South Africans is to confirm the findings of the Nugent Commission, but also to begin to point to a number of other players, because the report in itself, unlike the Nugent report, was not only about the decline and destruction of SARS. The Zondo Commission had a broader scope, which is to look at state capture in totality. And so there are a number of issues, and obviously we are studying the report in more detail, but just the first reading thereof suggests that in addition to the recommendations by Judge Nugent in his report, many of which have already been substantially fulfilled, there will be another raft of actions that we will have to follow through to answer some of the questions that are yet unanswered, but the telltale signs suggest of significant other areas of impropriety.
I suppose one of the biggest takeouts from the Nugent report and also from this one has to do with the decimation of capacity within SARS. I read somewhere that you lost no less than 2,000 skilled officials at various levels and in various units within SARS. Following through from the Nugent report, and also now you say with this one there's going to be a raft of other interventions, just specifically on the issue of capacity, human capacity, but as well as the various units. How far have you gone in trying to restore those?
So last year, the minister specifically allocated SARS additional funds, and we advertised about 600 of the posts to supplement skills in areas of transfer pricing and base erosion practices, for example, in areas of debt collection, forensic investigation, customs. And so that journey of rebuilding has commenced in earnest. It'll take us years to replace the capacity that we had lost, partly because we have to live within our means, but secondly also, we have to persuade the public once more that SARS is an employer of choice and that those who work there can do so and hold their heads high. And we know that in the period 2014 to 2018, SARS had lost that position of a sought-after employer. So the journey of rebuilding SARS had begun, but you know, there's also a wonderful opportunity for us, because when people tell me that they hope we can restore SARS to its former glory, I tell them that if we do that, we would be going backwards, because in the last decade, the world has moved on, and today the success of SARS is incumbent on expanding and increasing the use of data, using artificial intelligence, augmenting human effort with insights that we can derive from data, building smart, intelligent interfaces between SARS and its tax-paying public. So the exciting part of what we're doing is to build a SARS, not the SARS of 10 years ago, but a SARS that will be relevant to fulfilling and giving effect to its mandate in the current context. It would be impossible for SARS to fulfill its mandate if it does not deploy artificial intelligence and technology. And that's the exciting part of the rebuilding of SARS that we are currently engaged in.
Central to what happened at SARS in the period that was under investigation by the Commission is the entity Bain and Company. They were seen as being central to all of this. In your view, as SARS Commissioner now, with the rear view that you have and the benefit of that rear view, have they been held to account adequately, or is there still more accountability to exert from them?
Tulani, that's a great question. So there are two aspects to it. There's the civil matter, which we have substantially given effect to, which means that Bain has repaid the fees it had earned from SARS. We were very clear that, and as confirmed by the Nugent Commission, there was no business case for Bain to be involved. I mean, if you just think about it, here comes a company who is appointed and again confirmed by Zondo through an irregular procurement process for work that is not required to an entity that had no experience, because Bain was not experienced to do this work, and a plan that was preconceived even before their appointment. So we were very clear, and based on that, recovered the funds. We then handed this matter to the investigative authorities and the National Prosecuting Authority for further investigation to establish whether Bain also has to answer to a criminal matter. And we are now at the stage we are waiting, because this is now beyond our remit, we are waiting for the work of the Hawks and the NPA, but can give you the assurance, along with all of South Africa, that we will give our full cooperation to ensure that, to the extent that Bain and other entities, by the way, have to answer to criminal irregularities or criminal offences, SARS will be a willing party to work with the investigative and prosecutive.
How long have you been waiting on that criminal aspect from those responsible for that particular aspect, accepting that you drove the civil aspects on your part and the criminal aspects are not in your control? How long have you been waiting?
It is unfortunately taking long. We handed the matter over probably now almost 3 years ago. And the machinery of state various aspects, understandably, we have come to learn all of these institutions are struggling and the workload is inordinate. So we have not had any further development from the investigative authorities, but it is on the agenda.
I suggest to you, Commissioner, let me suggest to you, Commissioner, that you must be feeling let down as the leader of this institution charged with trying to turn it around, not only turn it around in terms of how it functions and its capacity, but also, turning around the image and how it's perceived in the public. To the extent that now it's been almost 3 years since you handed over this matter to law enforcement agencies and investigators, you must be feeling let down that 3 years later nothing has happened.
Thulas, there's obviously an element of disappointment that on many matters where we need a multi-agency cooperation, progress has been slow. And I have to say, we all have to accept unacceptably slow. However, at SARS, we have to remain single-mindedly committed. So we have to carve our work into two areas. The one is the substantial rebuilding of SARS and to reposition it to give effect to its mandate, to collect the revenue that's due, and to hold those who are responsible for tax offenses, to hold them to account. And we can't be distracted by any other agenda. Clearly, as a South African, but also as an affected party, we would love to see greater and more speedier progress in terms of the other criminal matters that are still out and in play, but at the same time can't be distracted by that. So yes, there is disappointment, but secondly, I can give you the assurance it does not deter us from the rebuilding project of SARS, which is a far more positive and greater project for us than simply holding those who have been party to the decline of SARS accountable. Both of them equally important, but the mandate that is assigned to the South African Revenue Services, we have to single-mindedly pursue and not be distracted by necessarily the mandate that falls in our sister organizations, and remain willing to work with them to pursue that agenda.
Two further aspects that I want to tease out with you, Commissioner, before I let you go. While you're speaking about a level of disappointment, let me bring up the issue of Ethel Williams as one of the people who were central in, lifting the veil on what Bain was doing at SARS. He feels let down in that he basically believes that he sacrificed it all, a career that was thriving, where he could have made millions upon millions, really, annually, but felt that there was something amiss that was going on and felt that it was his patriotic duty to speak up upon that observation. And he doesn't mention you by name as SARS or SARS Commissioner, but he mentions a number of stakeholders where he feels that basically the country and various organs of state and other institutions basically hung him out to dry and basically said, you're on your own, thank you for what you did. Reflecting on your side, do you believe you could have done more for Ethel Williams?
Let me not single out Ethel Williams, but just zoom out and talk generally to the role that whistleblowers and others who have led evidence. So firstly, I think South Africans owe a debt of gratitude to those who come forward and at great personal risk lead and give testimony that will help us unravel, solve, and hold accountable those who are responsible for perpetrating state capture. So that's the first thing. So we owe unconditionally as South Africa, and certainly speaking as the head of an institution, a debt of gratitude to those who have come forward, and this includes Mr. Williams. And they should draw comfort from the fact that they've acted in good conscience and they have done the right thing. Secondly, I think as a society, we are definitely, and the demise of many whistleblowers and the personal cost and sacrifice to them demonstrates that we are not doing enough to offer them support or protection. And so that is indeed a tragedy. And if Mr. Williams and others feel let down by the system, I would have an empathy towards that. Thirdly, and specifically in relation to SARS, I would not know what Mr. Williams's expectation is of SARS or any of the others. We have a number of employee matters where individuals feel that they have, and this is separate from the testimony that they have brought, where they feel they have been personally compromised and have suffered loss. We are engaged, as recommended by Judge Nugent, to consider what reparation we may exact to try and respond to those who feel that they have suffered. That process, I can give the assurance, is far advanced.
Yeah.
During the early part of last year, we appointed an independent panel so that they can apply their minds independently.
Mr. Kieswetter,
and so that...
thank you for that response. I'm running out of time. I'm sorry to rush you. Just a final question. It's not a question that I harbor in my mind, but I know South Africa being South Africa, this is a question that may exist in someone's mind. If the Zondo Commission is telling us that former President Jacob Zuma, along with Bain and Tom Moyane, were so central to what transpired, the decimation of SARS, someone out there may be wondering why it is that following that judgment last year around access, public access, at least limited and controlled media access to his tax matters and tax affairs, why it is that SARS is, quote unquote, siding with him in the legal argument. I believe I've got an idea why you're doing it, but I think someone who may harbor that question deserves to be clarified.
And I'm happy to clarify that. So the position that SARS has taken and will continue to defend has nothing to do with any individual taxpayer, including the former president. It has to do about a principle of confidentiality for every taxpayer that is sacrosanct to the working of SARS. The former president just happens to be the individual taxpayer whose tax matters has triggered the series of legal debates and arguments and expressions by the court. So I would like to give South Africans the assurance that this is not in defense of a person or an entity. This is in defense of a principle, and the defense is in the name of every single taxpayer whom we will afford exactly the same protection as we have always given the expression that we will apply our laws without fear, without favor, and without prejudice.